Hello, beautiful humans. Welcome to the Midlife Revolution. I'm your host, Megan Connor. This is an impromptu live today. I wanted to discuss this morning's hearing that my cousin Lori Vallow attended in Arizona in the Maricopa County Courthouse. I am going to share the full video of the hearing here. It was posted just a short time ago by Fox 10 in Phoenix, and I'm going to be using it in accordance with YouTube's fair use policy to provide commentary. But before we go to the full video of the hearing, I want to go ahead and share with you a summary of the hearing from Justin Lum's Twitter account. Justin Lum is an investigative reporter in Arizona for Fox 10 Phoenix, and he has been covering this case since the very beginning. He was the first person that gave me a public interview, and I really appreciate his reporting. He live tweeted from the hearing this morning, and so I think it's just a good way to give a summary for those of you who just want to know the bottom line of what happened, but you don't necessarily want to listen through the entire hearing. So I'm going to just read this from his Twitter feed. If you are on X, you can follow Justin Lum at JLumFox10. And so the hearing was at 10 o'clock Phoenix time this morning, and Justin says Lori Vallow is in the courtroom for this hearing. Then Vallow's attorney says there's no record of irrational behavior and that one doctor has deemed her competent. He spoke to Vallow briefly. So for those of you who are coming in a little bit cold to this, a few days ago, I gave an update on Lori's Rule 11 situation. Her original attorneys in Arizona had requested a Rule 11 for her to be evaluated for competency to stand trial. Since then, she was appointed new attorneys through no fault of hers or theirs. They were conflicted out, and there's nothing nefarious about it. It's just something that happens. So she got two new attorneys. These new attorneys, ostensibly at Lori's direction, asked for the Rule 11 to be vacated. In other words, they didn't want her to have to go through the competency evaluation period. But Judge Boreski previously ruled that given the fact that Lori was found not competent to stand trial in Idaho for 10 months, that he wanted her to go through with it. So at the Rule 11 hearing, though, Lori did not show up. She refused transport to the hearing, and she is not cooperating with mental health evaluators. And so they were not able to vacate the Rule 11 at that time because the judge who was over the Rule 11 argument basically said, if she's not here and she's wanting to represent herself as an attorney, I can't just vacate the Rule 11. So this status conference today had already been on the docket. So this is Judge Boreski, who is in the courtroom, and just wanted to clarify that before we go forward with this summary from Justin Lum's X account. So Vallow's attorney says there's no record of irrational behavior and that one doctor has deemed her competent. He spoke to Vallow briefly. That doctor mainly used the court records and other documents, but did speak with her. Then Justin says Pamela Hicks says the defense is still adamant that Vallow does not need to be in Rule 11. The second doctor appointed to this case has not met with Vallow yet. The judge reminds the defense that Vallow has been found incompetent before in Idaho. And the judge says if Vallow were to represent herself, he still needs to do a colloquy with the defendant. Then Justin says Vallow's speaking to the judge now. Vallow's answering a series of questions about being restored to competency in Idaho. And again, we'll get to see that when I play the full hearing here in just a minute. She says she took competency classes and met with, quote, many evaluators. After the judge asks Vallow what she's been diagnosed with in Idaho, the defense objects due to this being on the record. Then Vallow's lawyers approach the bench for a sidebar. Then back from the sidebar, Judge Boreski says he's inclined to let the Rule 11 process play out due to the prior counsel's motion, despite the new defense disagreeing. Then defense huddled up and discussed options we can't hear. Then judge says if Vallow does represent herself, she can go to trial as soon as she's ready. Judge Boreski says prior attorneys say Vallow suffers from delusions. She's been deemed incompetent in Idaho before. Now, by her own account, she's been incompetent for 10 months in that previous case. Based on those factors, Rule 11 should continue. The state suggests appointing another doctor to replace Dr. Hernandez if defense is uncomfortable due to the fact that Hernandez saw some TV program on Vallow. The state says it's important for Vallow to speak and cooperate with doctors in this process. The defense requests a new evaluator to replace Hernandez on the record. The state also wants Dr. McGady to visit Vallow again. Dr. McGady is the one who presented the original findings. He was the first doctor. The defense says she doesn't have to talk to the doctors if she doesn't want to. The judge just got done reviewing documents from both doctors. He will appoint a new evaluator to replace Camille Hernandez. Judge also says McGady doesn't have to interview Vallow again. Finally, the motion to withdraw Rule 11 is denied, and Vallow is ordered to finish Rule 11 process. So that's a really good summary of the hearing from Justin Lum's X account. Again, that's at JLumFox10 if you want to follow him on X. And so now I will go ahead to playing the full hearing. The video itself says that it's 30 minutes long, and I do plan to stop for commentary in between, just so that you're kind of aware of what the timing is going to look like. So thanks, guys, for being here today. Ashley, good to see you. Yes, please hit the like on your way in. If you're not subscribed already, please subscribe. Over half of the people who watch my videos are not subscribers, and it's absolutely free, best way to support the channel. So I appreciate you guys being here today. I am going to try to keep up with comments on the side over here. If I miss something, just put some kind of big emoji in there that will help me to see it. Destiny asks, wouldn't that prove she isn't competent? I'm not sure after which comment you wrote that, but hopefully this will become clear as we play through the hearing. Give me just 1 second, guys. Was not really planning on going live today, but I'm glad that the video is available so that we can review it together.
All right, is that the status conference?
I also usually play everything on 2x. Apologies. Let me get it back to normal speed. Okay.
Pending a hearing at the Rule 11 court last week. So what's the status, counsel?
Yes, Your Honor. And just to briefly put on the record, what we didn't put on the record was we had requested to seal this hearing because it does discuss sensitive information. I understand the prior court's ruling, but just to have on the record that we did request that it be sealed. So where we're at with, we had a hearing, an initial Rule 11 hearing with Commissioner Board erosion. He had received the reports. One of those reports is competent. The other doctor indicated she wasn't able to make a report, even though she had done a records review. Commissioner Monterogen, from my understanding, was willing to stipulate to competency based on the one report. Even though Ms. Vallow wasn't present, it's outside their normal process to stipulate to competency if a defendant's not there. But given the unique circumstances, he was, at least it was my understanding, he was willing to do that. However, the state objected, wanting Dr. Hernandez's report. So what I would like to do is go back over the LeCount case because I think it's completely on point with case law and where we're at with this case. So when we started with you, I believe it was on November 6th, you had indicated that you were willing, at least inclined, to withdraw prior counsel's Rule 11 motion until Ms. Vallow indicated that she wanted to represent herself. We brought up the LeCount case. I went back through that case pretty thoroughly, and I'm just going to kind of walk through it. That case starts off with that Ms. Vallow has an absolute right to represent herself, and then it goes into what has to be established before she can represent herself. She has to show a sufficient mental capacity to understand the nature of the dispute, formulate a defense, and engage with court, counsel, all of the people in the cases. The court can look at, the court has to look at some evidence in order to make that finding of putting her in Rule 11 before allowing her to represent herself, but there has to be a history of irrational behavior, some medical opinion documenting incompetency, or something else, and the defendant's demeanor.
So I just want to clarify a couple of things because I think people will sort of be, I don't know, have opinions about this. So I just want to clarify that she was just saying, the attorney was just saying that one of the stipulations for Lori to represent herself is that there can't be any erratic behavior. I forget exactly the word that she used. We can rewind for a second if we need to. And some people are going to say, well, obviously she's had some erratic behavior because, just look at everything that we've seen. But they're talking about specifically since she's been incarcerated in Arizona. And I don't know if incarcerated is the correct legal term for it because she's obviously there awaiting trial. And yes, she wants to represent herself, Ashley. That's something that I covered in the last video that I did a few days ago. I guess some people had not heard about that. But again, a few days ago, I did do a video recapping the Rule 11 hearing. And that's where I talked specifically for the first time about the fact that she has asked to represent herself. So there's a little bit more information and also opinion on that in the last video that I did. And that one it's only about 20 minutes long. And I posted that on November 17th. So it is a scary thought to think about her representing herself. My main concern with that is that it's going to turn into sort of an undignified process. I think sometimes people refer to it as a zoo or a circus, and I just don't think that is going to serve the interest of having justice for Charles. So I really hope that the judge does not allow her to represent herself. Even if she does, though, it's my understanding that she would have an attorney present with her to sort of give her tips and advice about how she might handle proceedings and things like that. However, as we have observed and what we know about Lori up to this point, probably she's not going to be super willing to listen to advice. So I really hope that that's not the case, that she gets to represent herself. It really, exactly. Erica, thank you for putting words to this. I'm not super articulate right now because I'm just feeling a little discombobulated about all of this. And I don't normally cover the court things. I normally let the other true crime podcasters handle those things. But since this is now my full-time job, I feel like, what would a full-time podcaster be doing right now? So that's why I decided to dive into this. We want her to have the best representation so she can't appeal later on. And that's a really important consideration. I want there to be competent counsel. I want there to be fair proceedings. I want the proceedings to be conducted in a dignified and competent manner so that justice can be served. That's it. For me, this is not entertainment. For me, this is not like, let's see how much, I don't know, entertainment value we can get out of this crazy situation. For me, I'm interested in the justice. So I think, Lori in Texas, you're right that I think it would be hard for the victims and the families to see her defend herself. I definitely don't want to see her given the opportunity to make a spectacle of herself in court. I think that's another part of it too. So thank you guys for helping me clarify my thoughts on this a little bit. So let's go back to the hearing now that we've sort of discussed some of the problematic points about Lori representing herself.
So the court has to find reasonable grounds. And that doesn't include an uncooperative attitude. You have to have a reasonable doubt as to her competency before we can place her in Rule 11. And the last part of LeCount talks about potentially just doing a preliminary evaluation and maybe getting one report before moving into a full Rule 11 evaluation. So I'm going to walk through what we have in this case. Again, she has an absolute right to represent herself. She has the sufficient mental capacity to understand the nature of the dispute, formulate a defense. We've now had a couple of conversations. We believe that she's able to do that, so we are avowing to the court that she's able to do that. So far, there's been no history. The state and your honors had this case for almost a year. You've had chances to see Ms. Vallow in court. To my understanding, there's been no history of irrational behavior. We now have a medical opinion from Dr. McGady who says that she's competent. There's been nothing else in her demeanor.
That doctor meet with her?
He spoke with her briefly. He didn't do a full evaluation, but he did speak with her. He did do a records review. I will point out his records review, his report, he kind of summarized what all of us have been saying was that maybe the Rule 11, and I don't want to get into previous counsel's thoughts, but Your Honor told us last court that you weren't really sure that you should have put her in Rule 11. We then showed up and said, we don't think this should be here. Dr. McGady's report, he did a review of CHS records and basically said, maybe this stemmed from a disagreement. So again, uncooperative.
Okay, interesting. So this is kind of what I've been wondering up to this point is why did her first attorneys ask for a Rule of 11 competency evaluation? And I think that what the attorney points out here is really interesting, that judge said, I'm not sure we should be in a Rule 11. And attorneys said, I'm not sure if we should be in Rule 11 either. And now she's speculating that it possibly was the result of a disagreement. And I'm assuming what she means is a disagreement between Lori and her attorneys. And so an attorney has the ability to ask for these types of remedies if their client is not cooperating with them. And if they're not cooperating or participating in their own defense, then that's literally the definition of competency, is that they have to understand the charges against them and they have to participate in their own defense. So if Lori was not participating in her own defense, as we know in Idaho, she didn't really put on much of a defense. She didn't want Chad thrown under the bus. She didn't want her mental health called into question. And so it's very possible that her initial attorneys, she was not cooperating with them, and that's why they requested for the Rule 11. So I just wanted to point out that may have been the reason why it got requested in the first place.
Cooperative behavior doesn't equal incompetency. Again, she hasn't displayed any irrational behavior. You have Dr.
Sorry, I want to just rewind a little bit because we missed just when I pushed pause at the wrong moment. She said uncooperative behavior doesn't necessarily indicate incompetency.
Uncooperative behavior doesn't equal incompetency. Again, she hasn't displayed any irrational behavior. You have Dr. McGady's report. As far as waiting,
I just want to say lately, she hasn't displayed any irrational behavior lately since she's been incarcerated. And the prisoners, what am I going to say? Behavior, demeanor, the way that they behave while they are in jail is taken into account in these things as well. When they're trying to determine competency, they're looking at their behavior, whether they've been kind and respectful to guards and other inmates and things like that. So, yeah, sorry guys. Sometimes my train of thought does not run smoothly. So I apologize. I know this is on the fly. I'm normally better prepared, but I haven't watched the hearing beforehand. I thought I would just watch it together with you guys. So please bear with my stops and starts.
Waiting around for Dr. Hernandez to do a report. We have concerns about that. She's already wrote a letter to the court indicating she's watched movies about this prior to being appointed. She's gone outside of what my understanding of typical Rule 11. If you have a client in Rule 11, they refuse to talk to the doctor. The defense attorney shows up at that initial 11 hearing, says, I've now gone and spoke to my client. They didn't really fully understand. Now they're going to cooperate with the doctor. Then the doctor goes back out a second time. We've spoke to lots of attorneys in our office. We've spoke with our attorney who's in Rule 11 regularly. It's very rare that a doctor attempts to go back out to speak with a client a second time.
Okay, just want to pause for 1 second to say that the initial doctor, Dr. McGady, did a records review and then spoke briefly to Lori. So he did not do a full battery of testing as is usually done in these cases. And he did not speak with her extensively. Now, speaking from my own personal experience, this hearing was this morning, Justine. It was this morning at 10 o'clock Phoenix time, and Fox 10 Phoenix just posted the video of this a short time ago, so that's why we're all just seeing it for the first time. I looked high and low to see if there was a way that I could live stream it, and it was not available online. So if you are a participant in the hearings, if you're a victim or your family member, you can go to the hearing in person, but they were not making it available for live streaming. So that's why we're doing it this way. Thanks for being patient with me. So I wanted to just give you an example from my personal experience. I had to participate in a custody evaluation, and that included a mental health evaluation. And that meant that I had to do a full battery of psychological tests, as well as meet with the custody evaluator several times and give statements both over the phone and in person and in writing. So it was a very extensive testing. That's more in line with what most mental health evaluators do when they're evaluating a prisoner for competency. According to what I've read, I'm not an expert, I'm not an attorney, I'm not a mental health professional. So all of these things are things that I have learned and researched since going through this entire trial process. So I will be interested to hear if Dr. John Mathias has comments on all of this Rule 11 issue, because that's literally what he does for a living, is he meets with offenders and prisoners and evaluates their mental health. So let's see. Questions. Thanks, guys. Thanks for being here. Thanks for your patience with me. Lindsay says, Megan, do you think she doesn't want to be deemed incompetent or have her mental health called into question because that's just Lori and always has been, or because she believes she's an exalted being? I think it's probably a little bit of both. I think she believes that she has no mental health issues whatsoever. I think she probably disagrees with whatever diagnoses that they've given her. I think she believes that hyper-religiosity is a feature, not a bug. She thinks that that's a good thing to be hyper-religious. So she really is, I think, determined to be seen as competent and healthy because she believes she's an exalted being. And she wants other people to believe that too. So it will be very interesting to see how she handles the rest of this. So let's go back into the hearing now.
Normally, I would never advise a client to not speak in Rule 11. However, we are defense attorneys. That is Rule 101. Your client shouldn't talk. And in this particular circumstance, we are saying we don't think she needs to be in Rule 11. So I don't think waiting around for Dr. Hernandez is going to get us anywhere. And we certainly don't need it to meet all of the evidence that is required in the count. And I think I had one other. The last thing is we don't see this with the state. How often do we see the state trying to keep a client into Rule 11 proceedings? So we now have Your Honor, who was concerned about the Rule 11 and didn't necessarily think it was appropriate. We have said that. Dr. McGady has now said that. Commissioner Motorosian, who was willing to stipulate to her competency. All of these people who are saying we believe she's competent, you should.
Okay, some people had questions about this the other day from my other video. Commissioner Motorosian is the judge that had to rule on whether or not Rule 11 should continue. I guess that was his separate piece, aside from Judge Boresky's what Judge Boresky is in charge of ruling on. I'm not sure exactly how that works legally. I think it's just the fact that Rule 11 hearings are handled by a different judge. So some people were asking about that the other day. Again, I'm not a legal expert, and so I can't give you a full explanation of that, but I'm going to dig into that. Okay. Yes, they did vacate the February trial date. So as of now, there's no date for Lori's trial. Although I did read in Justin Lum's X commentary where he was live tweeting the hearing that we're listening to right now, that he did say that Judge Boresky did say that Lori can go to trial anytime she wants if she's deemed competent to stand trial and if Judge Boresky allows her to represent herself. So I agree with this comment. Thank you. Howdy from Houston. It's lovely weather in San Antonio today, by the way. And it's supposed to get chilly tonight. I wanted to also mention about this hearing that I find this attorney's voice to be quite grating. And so I tried to turn it down a little bit. I'm hoping that you guys are hearing it okay.
Withdraw Rule 11, withdraw previous counsel's Rule 11, allow Ms. Vallow to be pro per. If at some point you or the state see something that is concerning, we can certainly put her in Rule 11 again. Competency is fluid. Again, we've never seen the state fight to keep someone in competency proceedings. It's usually the complete opposite.
So I don't know if you guys can see the screen right there, and you can see that it looks like Kay Vallow and Jenny. This might be Jenny Boudreau. I don't know exactly who that is, but these are the people who are attending the hearing via Zoom. So I'm glad to see that Kay is there.
That's all I have.
Okay. Well, is a big distinction from the LeCount case in this defendant's case, because according to prior counsel's motion for Rule 11, she was previously found incompetent in another jurisdiction and put into some sort of restoration process.
And then found competent and tried.
Correct.
All we're saying is that where we're at right now, you asked us to come back and give you some evidence of competency. I think we have more than provided that at this point. And at this point, we're just delaying any speedy trial rights, any fundamental right to represent herself.
Yeah, so I really feel for this attorney. I know she hasn't been Lori's attorney for very long. I cannot imagine what it must be like to have to represent Lori, because I'm sure she's not a very cooperative client. And I can just definitely tell that she's nervous. She probably knows that she's on a national stage right now. So yes, this hearing was from earlier this morning. For those of you who are just joining us, this hearing was not live streamed. And so I'm replaying the video from Fox 10 Phoenix that they posted of this hearing that took place this morning. So this is very live, up-to-date information right here. And yeah, this attorney probably knows that these types of podcasts and shows are going to be showing this hearing, and I can't imagine how nervous she must be. And that's what my voice sounds like when I am nervous and feeling flustered. And she's obviously, breathing heavy. So I just feel for her. I don't want to criticize or ridicule her. I think she's got to have an incredibly difficult job to do. So on with the hearing.
All right. Well, if she were allowed to represent herself prior to that, I'd have to go through a colloquy with her and get some information. And based on that information, could still refer her for a Rule 11, depending on her answers to those questions.
Sure, and that was supposed to be my last point. Was we haven't even done that colloquy with her, so let's do that.
So just that you know, colloquy is literally just a fancy word for a discussion. Like the judge needs to talk to her. That's all that is.
And see where we end up.
All right. Well, ma'am, I am going to ask you a series of questions, and that could inform what happens next. Have you previously in any other criminal proceeding been referred for a competency determination?
Yes, previously.
All right.
Her attorney has to tell her to say yes. I'm sure she didn't want to answer that question truthfully.
And were you ever previously determined to be incompetent at any point?
Not to my understanding. So my understanding was that the judge did the same thing that you did. In abundance of caution, let's go ahead and put her in and see. And I came out competent.
However, that's not really accurate, Lori, because she was obviously in a restoration program for 10 months. So,
well, when you say you came out competent, was there a period of time where you were ruled as incompetent?
I would say technically they did do that. That's how they
Lori, the answer is yes. That's all. The answer is yes.
put you into the program in that state. Correct.
How long were you in that program?
I was in that program for about 10 months.
Okay. And what types of things did they give you classes? What types of things did they speak to you about where you went through some process where you were later deemed competent?
I did go through a process of several things, several classes, competency class, and meeting with doctors and evaluators, many evaluators.
Are you aware of any diagnosis that you were given?
Yes.
And what is that?
We're going to object to that, especially with this being public and not sealed.
It's not relevant to this determination.
Okay, well then.
This was almost 2 years
okay.
ago.
Then I'm going to keep her in the Rule 11 process to determine that. And
We approach and discuss with you without it being on the without public on the record, but not public.
you mean as far as the diagnosis?
Yes.
Sure.
You want me to go?
Sidebar, Judge.
Or I don't know how.
I don't know if you just heard that, you guys, but Lori just said, do you want me to go? I think she's gearing up to represent herself. She wants to be included in the attorney's club.
Yes.
Sure.
You want me to go?
Or I don't know how.
So now they've obviously turned off the audio at this point because they're going to discuss this without us being able to hear it. So, yes. That big green book is not the Book of Mormon unless they added several hundred pages to it. I'm guessing it's either a law book of some kind or procedure book, or perhaps a glossary of legal terms or something like that. So Lori is chatting with her attorney with the microphone off, and now counsel, lots of people heading up there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, looks like 6 people heading up to talk with the judge. Yeah, so the attorney objected to her mental health diagnosis being announced in a public forum when obviously their motion to seal the hearing was denied, and they really don't want her diagnosis up there. But again, yes, we already know what her diagnosis is. We have that from the previous competency evaluation. And Lindsay Hendricks says, I think that's fair, TBH. I don't know. I really think that having the mental health diagnosis available to the judge should be able to answer that question. And it really is not a secret at this point. I don't know if they're worried about jury contamination, but anybody watching this proceeding right now probably is going to be not allowed to be on the jury anyway. If you've watched any of these proceedings, they're not going to let you be on the jury anyway. So here we have a nice zoom in on Lori's sandals here, standard prison issue. Although I did not know, this is interesting, I didn't know that they gave them matching socks to go with it. And also, I just want to, because it's just silliness, and while we're sitting here waiting, I want to just mention her hair. It's interesting, we haven't seen the front of her face in a pretty long time. It looks like she may have some color on the left side of her hairstyle there. And I'm not a big fan of this particular hairstyle. I feel like I can comment a little bit on Lori's hairstyle just because she's a hairdresser. And I always think it's interesting on how she's figuring this stuff out while she's in jail. But I refer to this as the sort of Tinkerbell dog hairstyle. I don't know how many of you know those little dogs that a lot of times people put that little top knot ponytail in their dog's hair. And that's kind of what I think about this hairstyle. It's really not my favorite. I don't think it's attractive, and I think it ages her a little bit. But that's kind of the least of our worries at this point. Yeah, she doesn't want the diagnosis public. She continues to have the right to dictate. She gave that up when she broke the law. Destiny, most Book of Mormons, at least the paper copies that the missionaries give out are usually blue with gold lettering on the outside. The paperback copies are usually blue. However, you can buy Mormon scriptures with leather covers in lots of different colors now. So it's pretty interesting. Harriet says, Megan, I thought that the attorneys ordered it because they had a disagreement with Lori and could have been about the phone call with Colby or her not cooperating with them. She mentioned to Colby. Yeah, I haven't watched Colby's episode with his reaction about her wanting to represent herself. So I probably need to go back and watch that. He probably has some more information than I do. She would love to attend the sidebar. I'm sure she's feeling really left out because she's the only person in the courtroom pretty much who's not up there right now. You know, I guess it's possible that there is a new diagnosis, but I would be really surprised about that, given the fact that Dr. McGady did not do that comprehensive evaluation that we were talking about. He just did a records review. And then he also talked to her briefly, but he didn't do a full-blown evaluation. So I'd be really surprised if he entered a new diagnosis. I'm really interested, again, to hear what Dr. John Matthias is going to say about this, because I'm really interested to know if it's typical for an evaluator in this case to just support the findings of previous evaluators, or if they really do try to come up with their own brand new unbiased diagnosis. So I'll be interested to hear that. I hope that they do. I hope that Hidden True Crime does comment on this. Okay, so Lindsay says, I don't know that all of us need to know, the judge for sure. Right. So they're going to come back on now.
All right. All that was on the record. The court reporter took it down despite the white noise.
I'm really glad that got on the record. So it'll be interesting to find out if through a FOIA request we can hear what they were talking about or read what they were talking about.
But it was sealed for the public.
What was that?
That part was sealed.
I haven't sealed anything yet, but I can.
Lori just asked the judge, did you tell him or did you not tell him? I think that's what she said. Let's go back and listen. Maybe I didn't rewind far enough. I don't know if you guys can hear the whispering.
What was that?
That part was sealed.
I haven't sealed anything yet, but I can.
She said, did you tell him or you didn't tell him? And the attorney says, I said it the way you said it, that it was a split decision. I guess the attorney doesn't realize that we can hear her microphone.
All right. I'm inclined to keep Ms. Vallow in the Rule 11 process based on the prior attorneys. I understand these attorneys today disagree with the prior attorney's assessment. But because of that conflicting viewpoint, I think I need to let the Rule 11 process play out. So do you want to, anything additional you want to put on the record regarding that?
There's a couple of, can I just have a moment to?
Sure.
I apologize if you guys can hear my dog in the background dreaming and making sleep noises. Okay, so they're discussing the date. She mentioned the date of December 3rd, and the attorney said, isn't that the next Rule 11? So what I have is that Dr. Hernandez's report was due on December 3rd, and that the next Rule 11 hearing is December 5th. Sorry, you guys, my dog is dreaming, so let me take care of that real quick. I'm so sad I had to wake him up. Okay. Let's see if we can hear more on this hot mic. Is there a hearing on December 3rd? For the next Rule 11, the attorney says yeah. I believe it's actually December 5th, though. Yeah, they're discussing the date.
I think last part is we haven't finished the colloquy, so we can just finish that, just so that's on the record, and then we don't have anything to add after that.
Okay. I don't see why this would produce a significant delay. If your client comes back competent, I want to, last time you were here, you mentioned needing a lot of time to be ready. But I just want you to think about this, and maybe you want to brief it, is if she represents herself, I don't think she should be forced to waive time in order for advisory counsel to be ready. I think she can go to trial as soon as she's ready if she's representing herself. And I don't know if you disagree with that, and you don't have to address it today.
We don't have to agree for a vote. We agree with the court's
Okay.
conclusion, and that's if she were going to proceed to trial under her speedy trial rights, that's the chance she takes going forward. We would always prepare ourselves the best as possible under the circumstances, but that shouldn't factor into the decision as to whether someone represents themselves.
I agree.
Bounds on that, if that's what the court's thinking. I'm not saying it is.
No, you had thrown it out last time that you would need a significant amount of time to be ready, even if she represented herself. And when I was reflecting on that, I was thinking that I didn't know the case. So I'm glad that we're on the same page on that.
Just before the court goes forward with what I believe it's going to do, I would like the court to make a factual finding and a legal conclusion as to why the court feels it has the authority to do what it's doing and the facts that support that.
All right, I think I already have repeatedly.
I would ask the court to do that again, so make it perfectly clear for the record.
All right.
I love it when Judge Boreski gets annoyed with these attorneys asking for unreasonable things. I want to go back and just listen real quick to exactly what this attorney is asking the judge to do. It sounds like he's asking the judge to give a full legal finding, ruling, and description on why the Rule 11 hearing or Rule 11 process is going to continue. And Judge Boreski's like, I think I've made that abundantly clear. I think he has too, but let's just make sure.
Legal conclusion as to why the court feels it has the
A significant amount of time to be ready, even if she represented herself. And when I was reflecting on that, I was thinking that I didn't know the case. So I'm glad that we're on the same page on that.
Just before the court goes forward with what I believe it's going to do, I would like the court to make a factual finding and a legal conclusion.
Okay, so he says if the court's going to go forward, which I believe is what it's going to do, I'd like the court to provide a legal finding and factual, I forgot the words already. Let's go back,
What I
sorry.
believe it's going to do, I would like the court to make a factual finding and a legal conclusion.
Factual finding and legal conclusion as to why the judge is proceeding with the Rule 11.
So why the court feels it has the authority to do what it's doing and the facts
Why the court feels it has the authority to do what it's doing, meaning proceeding with the Rule 11.
that support that.
All right, I think I already have repeatedly.
I would ask the court to do that again. So make
He says, I already have repeatedly. The attorney says, I would ask the court to do it again. Why exactly? Are attorneys really allowed to ask for this kind of stuff? It's just, if the court has already provided that finding of fact and that legal ruling and everything, are they really allowed to ask the judge to do it again? I've already done my job. Okay, sorry, can you do it again? I just don't think I would be very patient if I were Judge Boreski, honestly.
it perfectly clear for the record.
All right. Her prior attorneys requested a Rule 11 based on their observations. In their motion, they cite that she's, in their opinion, suffering from some form of delusion.
Okay, I'm going to go back just a second. Somebody in the chat asked, who is this guy? And this is one of Lori's new attorneys. So for those of you who didn't watch the previous video that I released on the 17th, Lori's original attorneys, public defenders, were conflicted out, and she had to be appointed new attorneys. So these three people that are with her right now are her new attorneys. And Erica, love it. I always love when funny typos show up. Nice job. But yeah, she's really quick. I don't know how she does it because obviously I've had to go back and rewind a bunch of times.
Do that again. So make it perfectly clear for the record.
All right. Her prior attorneys requested a Rule 11 based on their observations. In their motion, they cite that she's, in their opinion, suffering from some form of delusions. Next, she's been previously, in their motion, found incompetent in another jurisdiction and went through a restoration process. By her own account here today, she was in that for approximately 10 months, which seems, I know it's a different jurisdiction and it's a different standard, but it seems that anyone that's in that process for 10 months is a significant period of time before they're determined to be competent to stand trial.
I agree. So judge is saying, she was found incompetent in a prior case in Idaho, and it took her 10 months before she was then deemed to be competent, which is kind of a long time. So the judge is just reminding everyone, again, now he's doing what the attorney has asked him to do. He's reminding everybody that the previous attorneys were the ones who requested the Rule 11. She was found incompetent in a prior hearing. And so, yeah, Kelly J, she does want to defend herself, but the judge has not granted that request for her to go pro se. He has to agree to that. It's my understanding anyway. And before he's going to even address that, he's going to move forward with this Rule 11 competency evaluation process. So we make sure that she's competent to stand trial first. And I think this is a really good idea because, again, I don't want there to be any reason for her to appeal her case. And so we're just dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's to make sure that everything gets covered. We want to make sure that Lori doesn't get to come back later and say, well, we didn't do a competency hearing and then I found myself unable to, handle the circumstances. And Judge Bresky also did mention that she had been diagnosed with some kind of a delusional disorder. So he's obviously aware of that diagnosis, and that's probably what they discussed a little bit earlier. And so the attorney that protested that previously probably isn't very happy that he just said that out loud. But here we go, back to it.
So based on those factors, I think there's definitely enough to continue with the Rule 11 process. All right.
The state has one concern.
Go ahead.
Defense counsel has pointed out that they are not happy with the appointment of Dr. Hernandez. Dr. Hernandez did not go outside of the record to review anything. She indicated she had seen something on TV regarding the defendant, and it did not affect anything she was going to do in this case. However, if defense counsel is not comfortable with Dr. Hernandez being appointed, perhaps the court could appoint a different doctor. Most importantly, Judge, specifically due to the basis of the finding of incompetency in Idaho that we just found out today, I think it's incredibly important that the doctors actually speak to the defendant.
I agree.
Because the records from the jail may not bring up the issues unless they're specifically discussed. So the doctors would, of course, inquire into those areas, knowing that that is of possible concern. So it is incredibly important that the defendant cooperate and speak to the doctors. Defense counsel did indicate that it's common to stipulate to one doctor. That is not the case. I have been doing this for 20 years. It's not what we do. We are protecting the record, Judge, so that we don't come back on appeal for ineffective assistance of counsel when they say it should have been evaluated and it wasn't.
Can I add one last point? And again, this is going to go on for a little bit longer. Even if she does go to trial in February, this case is going to go on for some time. Everybody in this courtroom is going to have an opportunity to see Ms. Vallow, to talk with her. And if there are any issues about protecting the record, it can also be done then. I understand this might be a little bit more convenient, but what we are saying is at this point, it's not necessary.
Okay. Are you requesting a different evaluator?
Yeah, we were going to, yes.
All right.
We were going to do the Rule 11.
We thought the Rule 11 doctor had to do it, so we weren't going to bring it up.
Well, I think I can do it. What was the name of the one?
Dr. Camille Hernandez is the doctor, and we would request that Dr. McGady be ordered to visit the defendant again because of this unique circumstances. He did indicate in his report that his opinion was not as sure as it could be had he been able to interview the defendant. So the state would request that Dr. McGady reevaluate the defendant with an interview, and that this court order the defendant to cooperate to the best of her ability.
I really like this prosecutor. First of all, she did not have to bring up the fact that the defense wanted a new evaluator. That's the defense's job to do that. So I like the integrity of that we're going to address this issue just to make sure that we don't leave anything undone, that there's absolutely no room for anybody to complain about anything. So the prosecutor knows that the defense had complained about the evaluator watching a TV program that featured Lori and was worried that that was going to taint the evaluator's findings in that case. And so the prosecutor goes ahead and mentions this to the judge because she wants to make sure that if that's an issue with the defense, that it gets addressed. And so that's where you hear the defense attorney come in and say, I was going to say that. So yeah, it seems like she wants to be seen as competent, but wants to pull it out as a way to prove herself innocent, and can say she wasn't. It's confusing and ridiculous. So yes, let's go back and find out what's going to go forward here.
Do you want
Yeah,
to be heard?
We're clearly going down the rabbit hole at this point. We're getting far afield from what the court's concerns are, that she's able to represent herself. Now we're discussing all of the things that are relevant to Rule 11, which I'm indicating to the court aren't necessarily probative of what you need to understand in order to make a determination whether she can represent herself. If she doesn't want to talk to the doctor, she doesn't have to talk to the doctors. That's pretty straightforward and clear.
You're not requesting a specific doctor be appointed in place of Hernandez. You're talking about McGady. McGady was the one that found her competent.
Correct, but was not secure in his findings. So we would just request that. And then if you just notified the Forensic Services Unit, they will appoint another doctor that does in-custody evaluations, and she can be evaluated pretty quickly.
Okay.
Just one last thing, Judge, we never asked, did the court read the, basically, file a motion to reconsider, including the both reports? Did the court read those?
Read what?
The reports.
I haven't seen any reports. No.
File a motion to reconsider with the reports attached. I think the court probably should have reviewed those before we had.
You filed a motion to reconsider what?
You filed it under seal.
When was it filed? Are you talking about the motion to reconsider your motion to withdraw Rule 11?
Yes, that we hand delivered last week, I guess it was.
Okay, I issued a ruling that said there was nothing to reconsider because I had neither granted nor
We weren't sure what.
denied the motion to reconsider, or the motion to withdraw.
When we left court last time, the court indicated that it would like additional information to make a determination. That's what we provided to the court via those reports that the court asked for. You asked for those reports. We objected to going back to Rule 11, but it was determined at some point that there may be some outstanding reports. That's why we set this hearing. That's why we sent you the reports so you could review them before this hearing.
Looks like the judge is just reviewing the request. Okay, again, just because we can hear some whispering, I'm going to go back just to see if we can hear what's being said. I think what he said was, and then I couldn't hear after that. I guess. So it seems like what's happening is that sometimes the attorney pushes the button on the microphone to mute it and gets it pushed all the way down, and sometimes she doesn't. I think that's why we're getting a little bits and pieces of hot mic.
Not withdrawing. Not withdrawing. Just okay.
Not withdrawing. Let's go back and hear what she said. Not withdrawing. And then I couldn't hear what she said right after that, but it doesn't seem like it's too critical. Erica, I don't know the answer to this question, but I will find out for you. So judges, again, reviewing papers of the motions that were filed by the defense to reconsider his decision about letting Rule 11 continue. And I'm just letting this play because I don't know how long it lasts. I haven't watched this in advance, so I'm not sure how much time it will take before the judge finishes reviewing these papers, but the hearing is not that much longer. It's about 2 more minutes long. So we're almost at the end here, guys, home stretch. If you have questions, please put them in the comments and I will do my very best to answer as much as I possibly can. And I do have some thoughts about Lori representing herself. So I will give that at the end of the hearing as well. If you're here for the first time, welcome. Thank you for stopping by. Please like the episode. Please subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to support the channel for free. I am Lori Vallow's cousin. We grew up together. She was a bridesmaid at my wedding. We lived together for a short time in Austin. And I got to experience some of her unhealthy behaviors firsthand. But at the time, I didn't realize how unhealthy those behaviors were because it all felt very normal to me. So I definitely did not see anything like this coming. And it has been a very heartbreaking and long saga for all of us who know and love the people involved in this case. I'm looking very much forward to hearing all of the evidence that comes out in this Arizona case, just because it is going to be completely different than what was discussed in Idaho. And I'm very interested to hear possible other named co-conspirators that we didn't hear named in the Idaho cases. And I'm hoping that we will get justice for those people, for all of the victims, and to have justice served on all of those people who were involved. Okay, so it just cut off there. The attorney just said, "This is crazy. I've never seen this before." So I'm guessing we just did not get the very end of the hearing. But again, Justin Lum from Fox 10 Phoenix did live tweet the hearing. And he indicated that after the judge reviewed the documents from both doctors, he said, "Judge just got done reviewing documents from both doctors. He will appoint a new evaluator to replace Camille Hernandez." So he is granting that request from the defense that Camille Hernandez be replaced as a mental health evaluator on this case. And again, that's ostensibly because Dr. Hernandez, I don't know exactly what her qualification designation is. And so I apologize, but ostensibly Dr. Hernandez viewed some TV show involving Lori and stipulated she said, "This is not going to affect my findings whatsoever, but if I were the defense, I would object to that as well." And so it looked like, from what Justin says, that he will appoint a new evaluator to replace Camille Hernandez. The judge also says that McGady doesn't have to interview Vallow again. So now, looking back at this with a little bit of perspective, having seen the hearing and heard the argument for that, the argument was that Dr. McGady did not do a full evaluation. He only did a records review, and then he briefly spoke with Lori. I'm not sure if it was the prosecution or the defense. I believe it was the prosecution that asked for Dr. McGady to be ordered. It was the prosecution. I'm remembering now, the attorney that I like on the prosecution asked that Dr. McGady be ordered to do a more thorough evaluation, to visit with Lori again, and that Lori be ordered to participate in the mental health evaluation and to cooperate with the evaluators. And according to what Justin says now, McGady does not have to interview Vallow again, that his original report and findings will stand. And then finally, the motion to withdraw Rule 11 is denied by Judge Boreski. I almost said Judge Boyce. And Vallow is ordered to finish the Rule 11 process. So now that there is an order from a judge that she must allow the Rule 11 process to continue, I think that if she refuses to meet with evaluators, or if she refuses transport again like she did before, now she can be held in contempt of court, and she's going to be seen to not be cooperating in her defense. And that will make it less likely, I think personally, again, not an attorney, not an expert on law at all, I think it would make it less likely that the judge would grant her request to represent herself. So as it stands right now, the way this will proceed is that Lori will be evaluated by whomever the new person is that is appointed to evaluate her mental health, her competency. And then that report is due to the court on December, I want to make sure I get the correct date, on December 2nd. That report is due on December 2nd. However, now that they're appointing a new evaluator, I wonder if there's going to be a new date for that report to be due. However, I hope that they don't change the date, because there is another Rule 11 hearing on December 5th, again with the commissioner who was in the previous hearing that happened that I commented on the 17th. So what I hope happens is that they quickly appoint a new evaluator, that evaluator is able to get their report done by December 2nd, so that Rule 11 hearing can take place on the 5th with a full, the full 2 reports that we need to make a determination about whether she is competent to move forward. So that's what I think is going to happen. Please put your questions down here, and I'll do my best to answer them. Destiny says, this trial is for Charles, right? That's correct. But I thought she left the house and Alex was involved. He was. Will the kids be dragged through the mud again? I don't know the answer to that third question. But what I will tell you, what allegedly happened is that Alex was the shooter. Alex was in the house. Sorry, wasn't really expecting to go through the crime again. And I always get a little bit emotional when I have to talk about it. I don't apologize for that, because I want to normalize just emotions come up, and the more that we allow them to come up, and the sooner that they will pass and not be repressed and come out in harmful ways later. So what happened on the morning of July 11th, 2019, is that Charles had come into town to see JJ, basically. And so he was coming to the house that morning to pick up JJ and take him to school. Charles had flown Adam into town, ostensibly to get help from Adam to confront Lori about the crazy things that Lori had been saying, that she was a resurrected being, etc. And they were hoping that if they could get Lori in front of her stake president, who is an ecclesiastical leader in the Mormon church, that they would take away her temple recommend, or take away her ability to go into the temple. Lori was going to the temple every day at this point, and that's where a lot of these crazy, outlandish beliefs that fall outside of Mormon teachings were coming from, was these everyday meetings in the temple with the other people in her group, like Zulema and like Melanie Pulowski and Melanie Gibb. So they were hoping to get her ability to go to the temple taken away, and they were hoping that that would sort of snap her out of her delusion and get her to wake up and realize that this is not real. What ended up happening is that when Charles got to the house to pick up JJ, he saw that Alex's truck was there. He texted Adam and said, Alex's truck is here. And Adam said something to the effect of, they're definitely planning something, be careful. What I understand is that Alex had his own place in town, did not need to be staying with Lori, but stayed with her overnight. Lori said she asked him to stay with her as a protector. And according to other family members, Alex purchased a gun just 2 weeks prior to this date. So Charles went into the house. There was some kind of an altercation, and Lori left. The children were there. JJ and Tylee were there. Lori put JJ into the car. I believe Tylee went to the car with JJ as well. I believe at some point Lori came into the car, but it's unclear as to whether she came outside before or after the shots were fired. She claims that it was before and that she heard the gunshot from the garage. She then left with the children. She went to purchase flip-flops at a Walgreens, I believe, because she had left, and I think Tylee had left without shoes. She then went to Burger King to get breakfast for JJ, which this is just incredibly wild behavior to me. I can't even believe this is real. And then she took JJ to school and dropped him off. And then she came back to the house where apparently police had already been called. Now, there was quite a bit of time that passed here. Once the shooting took place, Alex didn't call 911 for quite a bit of time. I believe that he called Lori first. They had a discussion while she was in the process of running these errands, and that it was a long time before 911 was called. When 911 was called, they asked Alex if he could perform CPR on Charles, and he said he didn't know how to do that. They said they would walk him through it. He later claimed that he did perform CPR, but the paramedics said that that's not possible because the signs of someone performing CPR were not there. I don't want to go into the exact details of that. What Alex claims happened is that Charles came in and he heard Charles and Lori arguing, that he left his room and came outside to find them arguing. Then Tylee came with a bat in her hand, that apparently she keeps a baseball bat in her room. Charles is a former professional or semi-professional baseball player. And so that whole situation seems a little sketchy to me. But according to Alex's statement to police, Tylee came out with the bat and sort of tried to jab at Charles with it. Charles grabbed the bat. There was an altercation. The bat got loose. I don't know exactly what happened, but Alex says that somewhere in there, Charles hit him on the back of the head with a bat. And that Alex went to his room to get his gun and then came back out, told him to put the bat down, and Charles came at him with the bat, and then he shot Charles. I don't think that that is an accurate representation at all of what happened. Lori's story does not match Alex's story. And if there was a situation where Charles had hit Alex with a bat, I don't think that he would have gotten back up. Not only that, but when Alex left the house, he was holding a cloth to the back of his head, and the back of his head was bleeding. I don't think that necessarily would have been caused by being hit with a bat. So Alex fully and freely admitted to the police that he was the one who pulled the trigger, and they took him to the police station where he made a statement. They interviewed him. All of these interviews are available online as well. And Lori went to the station and made a statement as well. Alex claimed it was self-defense. They apparently did not look to see if he had any kind of a record because he had served time for the assault of Joe Ryan before. And I think that if they had done that, they would never have let Alex leave that day. I don't want to cast aspersions on law enforcement. I don't pretend to know how to do that job. So I don't want to be too critical of them because I have no idea what's involved in that kind of a situation. I think it's really unfortunate how it turned out because I think if Alex had been detained, then perhaps the kids might be still alive, but we also can't speculate on that either. I think that Lori took Charles's cell phone with her when she left the house. And I think that between the time that she saw police and the time that she saw the police at the house and made her initial statements to the police and the time that the police asked for Charles's cell phone was a very long time. Some people have speculated that she manipulated text messages in his phone or did some other shady things with his phone, but that's what I'm hoping that information will come out. So I hope that answers your question. I'm going to, if I left anything out or if I've gotten something wrong, please correct me. I don't always have these things top of mind. And like I said, I was not prepared to do this live today. I was not prepared to rehash the details of the crime today. So I am winging it. This is just on the fly. I think replacing Dr. Hernandez is good too. It's one last thing that they can come back and say was unfair. Leslie asks, how might this trial affect her life sentences already? Why do you think Lori's trying so hard for this? I don't think this trial affects her current life sentences. No matter the outcome of this trial, she will still have to serve her life sentences in Idaho. And I believe she'll have to serve those first before she can come back to Arizona to serve any time that may or may not be done in this trial. It's sort of a moot point given the fact that she's serving consecutive life sentences in Idaho. The bottom line is she's never going to leave prison. She does not have the possibility of parole in Idaho. This trial is solely for getting justice for Charles. I understand that after this trial, she will also have a trial for conspiracy to commit murder in the case of Brandon Boudreaux. Again, Brandon is alive. It is solely to get justice for the attempt on his life, not that it's going to add anything necessarily to what Lori's going to have to do. The bottom line is she's never going to see the light of day, and that is as it should be. Although they do have the death penalty in Arizona, I don't believe conspiracy to commit murder is an offense punishable by the death penalty, so I don't think it's going to change anything. This hearing was from this morning. She did no-show her Rule 11 hearing. That hearing was specifically to say whether or not she was going to go forward with an evaluation to determine her competency to stand trial. That was back on the 17th, I believe. Is that the day? I don't know. I totally got discombobulated with what day that was. Maybe it was I don't know. I posted my video of it on the 17th. So in that video, I go through the difference between the Rule 11 hearing and this. This was a status hearing, I believe. And so, yes, this was this morning. This was a status hearing this morning. The last one was a Rule 11. She refused to be transported to that hearing because she doesn't want to participate in Rule 11 proceedings. So now I'm hoping that this is going to, this ruling from the judge that she has to participate in the Rule 11, I hope that's going to speed things up and make her a little bit more cooperative. And Grammy B keeps pointing this out, and I just want to highlight this because it's important. Can a delusional person really represent anything properly? She was found to have delusional disorder. She says, what am I missing here? She's still delusional. And I agree with you. It's pretty impossible to represent yourself competently if you are delusional, suffering from delusional disorder. So I hope that the judge is going to find that she cannot represent herself. That's what I hope is going to happen. I'm very sorry about this, Nicole. I thought about maybe muting it, but then I didn't know when they were going to come back. And so I apologize that I wasn't prepared in advance for that. It was reminding me as well. And so I apologize. Thanks. I appreciate your support. It's really not hard on me at this point. This is just, I've accepted that this is part of my life and I've chosen to make the best of it. and it helps me heal to talk about it and to say these things out loud. So this is actually good for me in the long run. It's hard to do it in the moment, but I really appreciate you guys being here with me through this, because it does help me to talk about it and say these things out loud. Anna Franco says, I think Annie Cushing, as well as great uncle Rex, suspect that it is within the realm of possibility that Charles was ambushed as soon as he walked into the house. I agree, 100%. Alex shot, and Lori probably shot as well. I don't know if I agree with that. I do think that both shots came from Alex. And I also think that the children were not in the house when the shots took place, but I don't know. It is really possible that he could have been ambushed. So yes. Defense attorney, I think, appeared aggressive mainly because she was nervous. And obviously she seems frustrated and flustered. I think if I were in the position of having to defend someone like Lori, knowing the futility of that defense and knowing that knowing that nothing's going to go your way, I can understand maybe some of those feelings. But then if we choose to be a defense attorney, you have to realize that you're probably not going to win most of your cases, and you're going to end up as a public defender saddled with cases that you don't get to choose who you defend. So I just think I think she came across aggressive because she was flustered and nervous in the moment, and probably upset about not having the hearing sealed. If it's sealed, she gets to do all of this privately. She doesn't have to be on the public stage. And so anyway, that's just my thought. So bad, especially when you compare it to the Orange County. She's replying to a comment, and I don't know. Okay, this case looks so bad on Arizona's justice system. I wonder how much this is a factor. And then to go back to Veronica's response, especially when you compare it to Orange County in Florida, who worked on Boone and working on Soto, they're on top of everything. The state lets so much slip through the cracks. I'm not a true crime follower, so I can't speak to how they're doing things in Orange County, but this really does seem to be a disorganized process and a messy one. I can't imagine being saddled with this case, but the original defense attorney, I remember his first comment in the very first hearings that we had was that there was so much data that he couldn't possibly get through it all. And Judge Boreski was like, deal with it, man. You have to do this. This is your job, tried to give him so much leeway to take the time to be prepared, but that's the job. You're an attorney, MB, thank you so much for this. I really appreciate your support and your help. Anybody who likes, subscribes, and donates to the channel, I really appreciate. I also do have a Patreon. I have a Venmo. Whatever the easiest way is for you to send your support, I really do appreciate it. I try to put out as much information as I can about the case. My commentary, for those of you who are here the first time, I try to focus my commentary on how to heal from things like this and how to deal with people in our lives who are just like Lori, who have those manipulative, controlling behaviors. And most of the content that I put out is from my podcast, The Midlife Revolution, where we discuss making small changes that revolutionize your quality of life. So I'd love to have you join me for podcasts. I release an episode every Wednesday evening, followed by a live Q&A about the episode. And some of my episodes are about the case. Some of them are about my exit from Mormonism. Most of them, they're all in some way about healing and moving forward. If you go back and listen to my first season of the Midlife Revolution, all of those episodes are about my personal healing journey in healing from trauma that had nothing to do with Lori when I was a child. So I appreciate you being here. Thank you for liking, and thank you to those of you who are subscribing and supporting. I really do appreciate it. So all of those police interviews will come out. Not a good look. Also, whoever in the DA office let it slide. Yes, this is true. Charles was physically fit. He was very strong. It's always so strange to me. Kelly J says that Alex was staying the night there. I'm basically in a basically empty room when he had his own house very close. Yeah, it was obviously a setup. When I first heard the circumstances of this, immediately I said this was not an accident. This was not self-defense. And it's just unfortunate that law enforcement didn't have the information that they needed to keep him detained. I have never understood the whole flip-flop purchase thing either, except they left the house without any footwear, and she may have been waiting for police to meet her back at home. So I apologize, you guys. My foot is not quite healed yet. I agree with this, Anna Franco. I think it probably was self-inflicted. Somehow they had to have some kind of a plan in place for making it look like Alex was the victim. Kelly J says, I do think a fight broke out. I do believe they took the phone to make him mad, but that's the only part that sounds true. They were baiting him. And when you go back and you watch Lori's interview, her description is very scattered. She doesn't really seem to be able to accurately describe the location of the altercation and how all of the people moved around the island and in the hallway and all those things. It just seems like she really hasn't thought this out. It's so interesting. Like, when you plan to do something in advance like this, like, you better have your story straight before anything happens and straight between the two of you. It's just baffling to me. I'm sorry. Just the fact that Lori left to drop her child off after her husband was shot should have been suspicious enough to detain Lori. Alex should have been arrested that day. And I agree, Lori's explanation to law enforcement about this was that she just went into mom mode and she was just thinking about taking care of the kids, and she was thinking that JJ would be safest at school. I don't know, that line of thinking has a little bit, a modicum of like mom protector mentality, which I can identify with it, but I'm not sure that would have been the choice that I would have made. Of course, thinking about it from that perspective is the assumption that it was self-defense and it was not planned in advance. So we have to do a lot of conjecture to even get to that place. So Anna Franco says, Charles did not have a chance. He was ambushed as soon as he walked in and pled for his life, in my opinion. I don't know. I want to have more information about what actually did happen. Kelly J, I don't think Charles ever had the bat. Lori's crazy, probably hit Alex to fake the fight. I agree, that's probably true. Waiting for the judge to say, well, is she still having breakfast with Jesus? That would have been a good one. Yeah. Yeah, that hairstyle is so teeny bopper, delusional right there. Lori, you're no longer a cheerleader. Somebody was asking how old she is. Lori's just a year older than me, so she's 51, I guess. She'll be 52 in July. So this is a good question. Do you think they had Tylee completely lie? I always thought it was partial truth to be more believable. This is what I want to know. Did they make Tylee lie about this, or did they gaslight her in some way to have her cooperate with the official narrative? I don't know. Thanks, Grammy B. I appreciate it. Veronica, her demeanor during questioning is noteworthy as well. Yep. Lori is bored and has nothing to lose, so why not go to trial? I think there's an aspect of this, like, she knows she's in prison for the rest of her life and she wants to make it as exciting for herself as she possibly can. She wants something to do. And so she wants to, she wants to prolong this process, because every day she's sitting in that courtroom is another day she's not sitting in prison. Every day she's sitting in that courtroom is another day that people are watching the Lori show, and she eats it up. So absolutely, she is going to draw this process out as long as she possibly can. And I think that's part of the reason why she's being difficult and not cooperating. But also, you have to remember, Lori's reputation and how she appears in public is more important to her than almost anything else. And so, she's going to protect that at all costs. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for joining. What's going on with Lori? Well, a lot. I had an episode that I posted on November 17th that reviews the most recent hearing. And then I recommend you go back to the beginning of the video, because I do outline exactly what's happening today. So if you have more questions, please feel free to email me at askmegan with 2 E's, MEEGAN @gmail.com. That's probably the best place to get a hold of me right now. And I do sometimes do lives where I answer individual questions. I also do one-on-one coaching for anybody leaving high demand religion, or anybody deconstructing family systems, or anybody who wants to make positive changes to improve the quality of their life. I focus a lot on self-healing, self-care, self-love. We have group coaching as well on Sunday mornings. If you're interested in either of those things, you can go to my website at third-verse.com and sign up for a free 15 to 20 minute consult call, just to see if we're a good match for working together, to see if I have right skills and tools to help you with what you're struggling with. And if you want to do group coaching, I always want people to attend a session for free before they pay for anything, just to make sure that it's something that's going to be valuable to them. So please feel free to reach out and contact me. I am here for questions and for help of all kinds. Leslie D. Williams says, I had forgotten Alex served time for the assault of Joe Ryan in the past. That definitely would have been on his record. It would have been something that we can easily look up. Amy Friedman says, how about play her conversation with Colby, Tylee, her little brother, 3 weeks after she was, it was wild and crazy. I did do an entire episode on Lori's conversation with Colby, and that's, again, available on my channel. Please feel free to look that up. It's probably easy to find it. It's pretty recent. Erica says, I can't wait to hear from the neighbors and any information about this pool party Lori had the day Charles was killed. I agree. I really want to know what was going on. Leslie D. Williams, I agree. I do believe that she manipulated information and messages in his phone, but the metadata will show that, and hopefully the forensic experts will be able to figure that out. MB asks, how long did it take Arizona law enforcement to investigate the shooting? I mean, it happened July 11th. He died December 11th or 12th. He died December 11th, I believe. I believe Tammy's body was exhumed on December 10th, and Alex died on December 11th. I don't know the exact timing of when law enforcement reversed the finding that this was self-defense. But I do know that in the last days and weeks of Alex's life, he was already being monitored by law enforcement. And so they were very well aware that he was involved in the disappearance of the children somehow. I don't know how much they knew about it. And I don't know specifically when this case was reversed from a self-defense. I don't know the timing of that, so I'll have to look it up. Sorry about that. There wasn't a pool party. I don't know. The last thing that I heard was that there was some kind of a party. I do know that the family gathered later in the day. I don't know exactly the circumstances, but again, these are the questions I want to have answered as well. Lori asked her attorney to keep the details of the evaluation secret, like she has a reputation left. Again, yes, I don't think that there's a lot of point in trying to hush these things up, because we know all of these details, those of us who've been following the case already. We know what kind of person she is as well. We pull in Chad. He blamed everything on Lori. Anyway, that would be fun. Well, Chad did obviously have some involvement in this, because we have a phone call where Chad called a funeral home, I think the day after the shooting, to inquire about cremation costs. So we know that he knew in advance, probably, we can speculate that he knew in advance that this was going to happen. They were doing castings on this demon Heaplos for a long time before this happened. And Lori had actually predicted that Charles was going to get in a car accident and die before this. So we know this was all in motion long before the actual date of July 11th. We know that it was. I don't know how much they will pull in about Charles' involvement in here, because remember, the goal of the prosecution is to convict Lori for conspiracy to commit murder. It's not to give us all the facts or all the evidence or even all the relevant details. They're only going to tell us the details or bring in the evidence that supports that conviction for Lori. So they may not even really mention Chad at all. So thank you so much. I appreciate your support, everybody. Were Charles and Lori not together when all this went down? So in January of 2019, Charles filed for divorce because he believed that Lori was having an affair with Chad. He had already contacted Tammy and already had evidence of Lori's affair with Chad, that they were in contact and sending each other messages and dancing videos and all those kinds of things. So Charles filed for divorce in January, and then I believe in February, he withdrew his divorce complaint and tried to reconcile with Lori. And so at this point, they were estranged. There had been some back and forth. But by July, by even June or so, I don't remember the exact timing of the body cam footage that we see with Charles pleading with law enforcement to help him. But again, before trial comes up, rest assured that I will do a complete timeline of the entire case. We will go through everything piece by piece so that everybody will have all the information. I was gearing up to have that ready prior to the February trial. So I was planning to be ready to do that timeline of events in January. I may need to move it up now, because if Lori does pass the competency evaluation, and the judge just told her today that she can go to trial anytime, I don't know if they can move it up, if there's even room on the court's docket to move it up and to select a jury to that. But I would let me just say this. I'd be surprised if it goes to trial before February. I don't know if they have reserved those dates, even though they vacated the trial. I don't know if the February dates are still set aside just in case they need to go back to trial at that point, or if they've just said, we're going to forget these February dates. We're going to allow other things to be scheduled. And then if Lori passes competency, then they'll have to reschedule at that point. And that means that it would be even farther down the road than February. So I don't know exactly how the timing is all going to play out. But do rest assured, I will go through an entire timeline of how everything happened, even prior to all of this happening in July 11th. So thanks everybody again for being here. Thanks for liking. Thanks for becoming new subscribers. If you're new here, welcome. This is one of the kindest chats on the internet. I love my group of beautiful humans here. So I hope that you find yourself supported and cared for by our channel members and our supporters. You can also become a channel member. There are 3 different levels of membership, and I do members only lives, which I'll be doing a lot more frequently now that this is my full-time job. So Eleanor says, Lori must actually care what we think of her if she's trying to keep anything hidden. That baffles me. Of course she does. Of course she does. She cares about her reputation more than anything else. And she gets all of her validation externally. I don't think that she loves herself. And I don't think there's anyone else telling her frequently that they love and care about her. So she gets all of her validation from external sources, meaning like you and me watching right here and right now. I don't know how much she is allowed to consume of outside media while she's in prison, but I do know she has her iPad, or her tablet, it has certain restrictions on it. So she can't, for example, make posts on Facebook and things like that. But I do know that she has access to some things. So I'd be interested to know if anybody is aware of what she does have access to. But I know that she is very well aware of the media coverage on her case. She's excited about it. She loves it. Her comments that she made back during COVID, that her case was a bigger deal than COVID was. You know, we know that she cares very much about what people say about her and what people think about her. And what she wants people to think is that she is an exalted goddess, that she is going to be instrumental in bringing to pass the gathering of the 144,000 before Jesus Christ comes, and that she's basically going to be, you know, I don't know, as is a goddess more exalted than Jesus Christ, she's putting herself on that same plane. So it's pretty wild. Yeah, it has to be embarrassing to have to represent her delusion to the court. Anna says, Sandra Brown is a therapist who says that after 30 years of trying, there is no cure for narcissism. We do know that Lori was diagnosed with a personality disorder, and it is very difficult to cure personality disorders. But remember, Lori doesn't have to be cured in the mental health sense. She doesn't have to be healthy. The only requirements for competency are that she understands the charges, number 1, and number 2, that she participates in her defense. That's all. So she does not have to be cured of her personality disorders or her delusions or any of those things. She just has to understand the charges and be able to participate in her defense. So basically, she can't be catatonic. She has to be responsive, basically. Does this mean we get you 2 times today? Yes, it does. I do have an episode planned to release this evening as well as a live. We'll see how much stamina I have for already being online for an hour and 40 minutes today. We'll see. I'll just have to make sure that I eat dinner early. Thanks for being here, Latter Daily Digest, one of the most ardent supporters of the channel. I was on Latter Daily Digest show last night talking about the divine feminine, how women are frustrated with the idea of having to go through men in order to have access to deity. And it was an excellent conversation. I think we had a great conversation. LWLW says, do you think anything would help Lori heal? I think since she thinks she's right, she can't heal what's not broken. And this is a really, really good point. When you think that there is nothing wrong with the way that you interact with people, then you're not going to really do any work to healing. And I think that is the main number one thing that's preventing her from healing. That's the main number one thing that prevents people with personality disorders from healing in the first place, because they don't believe there's anything wrong with the way that they interact with people in their lives. And so when you have somebody in that position, she's perfectly happy with the way that things are right now, and with the way that she interacts with people, the way that she's perceived, and all of those things. It takes self-introspection to want to heal in the first place. And that is something that people with personality disorders don't have, is that ability to self-reflect and that ability to say, hey, I think there's something wrong with me. I need to figure it out. Let me go consult a professional. Lori believes that she is a professional in everything. She believes she knows everything. She can do everything. That's why she wants to represent herself. By the way, speaking to some of my friends who are attorneys, excuse me one. My friends who are attorneys say that it is the worst idea in the world to represent yourself. It doesn't matter how competent you are. It doesn't matter how well you know your own case. And it doesn't even matter if you are an attorney yourself. People who represent themselves have a fool as a client, is what they say. I tend to agree. So I don't think it's a great idea for her to represent herself at all. Kelly J, it breaks my heart when I see Charles on video begging police for help. As someone who lives in Phoenix, it's embarrassing how they handled it all. I agree. It does break my heart as well. If she had to admit none of this was real, I believe she would actually fall apart. And I think this is true. I think her delusion is necessary at the moment, because facing the truth would just be impossible for her to do. I think it would break her. And I don't think she's capable of handling the fallout of accepting the truth. So sometimes when we're in a delusion, that delusion is there to protect us psychologically from having to deal with the gravity of the truth. So there's that. I agree, Eleanor. I think Charles was a good man. And Rachel, this is what I'm looking forward to the most, the text communication that will help clarify what happened. I know that Lori was very careful about not texting too much, as we saw in her Idaho trial. When someone would text her a question that was potentially incriminating, she would say, call me. Or she wouldn't answer the text message, and then we would have on the record that there was a phone call between those two people. So she did have some brains about that particular thing. And I find it very interesting that she and Chad were really good about turning off the GPS location on their phone, but Alex was not. And I wonder if Lori and Chad purposely did not tell Alex to turn his GPS location off or to turn his phone off, and just allowed all of that GPS data to be collected because they were setting him up as the fall guy. I think it's an interesting thing to consider. Even bad attention is attention. That's true. She probably wants to wear regular clothes again. Yeah. probably. She likes to be able to get dressed up and show up in public and flirt with the guards and the bailiffs and the transporters and everybody. So sad but true that she loves it. So true. She should have called the police right away, Diane L. says, or even if she thought Charles was going to hurt someone. Yeah, so, I mean, that's another reason why I think this absolutely was a setup, because if Charles came in and there was any kind of altercation, she could have called 911, or Alex could have, or Tylee could have. So yeah, it's this, again, conjecture like this of what she should have done. We can't even really speculate about that, because that means assuming that this was not premeditated or pre-planned, which I think it absolutely was, allegedly, because that's what this trial is for, right? Oh, goodness, yeah. I love a good play on words, but sheesh. Anna Franco says, I believe Tylee was under coercive control through manipulation. I don't think Lori had love for her own biological daughter. Lori may appear to love Colby, pure disdain for Tylee. Listen, let's be clear. Lori doesn't love anybody but Lori. And I think that there was this dynamic of competition between Lori and Tylee. And I'm going to do an episode on the concept, the Jungian concept of the devouring mother, because I believe that's very much what Lori was. She could not allow Tylee to have her own life or to be successful in any way or to upstage Lori in any way. And so Lori did things to keep Tylee small. And that enabled Lori to be the one in the spotlight, for Lori to be the one to continue to be the beautiful one, get attention. So I am definitely going to do that. I'm not prepared to do it yet, but it's coming soon. Hopefully I'll get to do it before the hearing on December 5th, because I think that will be timely. In the end, what goes around comes around. Diamond Dave, it's great to see you. I love that we are friends now, and thanks for being here. Anna says the proof was in the way Tylee's body was decimated at death, and I agree with you. It definitely shows hatred and anger. Beck says, for the longest time, I kept thinking Megan was Melanie P's generation, not Lori's. Yeah, Melanie P is actually in my children's generation. She's a little bit older than my oldest daughter, but my oldest daughter and Colby are close in age. They spent a lot of time together growing up. And so I'm grateful that you guys think that I look so young. I actually feel like I'm probably around 35 or so. I have not really, it hasn't really sunk in that I turned 50 a couple months ago, but age is just a number to me. I'm just going to keep doing me, Anonymous Canadian girl says, Colby seems to be in a good place to start to tackle his mother. He does. So glad to see he is starting to see how unhealthy their relationship had always been. It's amazing what having your own kids does. Yes. And also just having that distance between him and his mom. And as horrific as this whole thing has been, the evidence for me, the evidence of what was done and how it was done, helps me to mentally radically accept the fact of who she is. And I think it's probably been similar for Colby. I'm looking forward to a time when Colby and I can connect, when he's ready to do that, because I just want to be here as a resource for him, for whatever he needs me for, healing or whatever. And I have caught some of his shows and some of his lives, and I'm trying to catch more of them as I can. But it is really good to see him healing, and he seems like he's in a really good place right now. I know that he's been through a lot, and I can't imagine what he's been through. So I don't want to judge any of the choices that he's made. I think he has done a good job, I think, so far, of protecting his mental health and of doing the healing that he needs to do. And I want to see that continue. Excuse me, guys. Condodo says, if it's something you're willing to do, a dive into Lori's treatment of you with the man friend and Alex with Stacy. That was eye-opening, changed my whole outlook of them. I don't know. There's not really a whole lot to dive into. It was such a short time frame. I only lived there for, I think, 3 months. maybe even shorter than that. I can't remember exactly how long it was. I think it was from May to July, but I could be wrong about that. Anyway, it was such a short time. It was a blip on the radar. It was almost like she went on the date with the guy, I went on the date with the guy, and then Janice came, and that all happened within a week of time. And I really told kind of the whole story on that. So I don't know if it's worth it to do a dive. It's a pretty shallow topic, to be honest with you. For those of you who haven't heard that story, you can watch my episode on hidden true crime, my first episode with them, or my Mormon Stories episode, my first episode with Mormon Stories. I've been on both of those channels again several times, but I just don't feel like rehashing it right now. So I'm sorry, you guys. Kelly J, do you think they believed in these castings and murdered because they weren't working fast enough? I do think that there is something to that theory. I think they do. I think Lori really does believe that she has these magical powers. And I think both Lori and Chad really did believe in their predictions about the end of the world. So I think this is all a surprise to them. I think they really believed that the world was going to end in August of 2019, I think it was. And so then when it didn't, it feels like that escalated things. And then they had another prediction that the world was going to end again at some point before the children were found. And so I think they really believed that Jesus was going to come before anybody found out that they had done anything wrong. And in addition, I think they really did believe that they had the power to do these castings. And if you listen to the phone call with Colby, Lori's phone call with Colby, that was just recently released, she says to him, do I believe that people can be possessed of evil spirits? Yes, I do. Do I believe that I have the power to cast those spirits out? Yes, I do. So she really did believe she does still believe that she has that power. And so I do think that there's something to this idea of they sort of had to take matters into their own hands because their powers weren't working fast enough. I do think so. Eleanor Nelson says, I'd give anything to go through Alex's phones and iCloud accounts. He was a skeevy creep. I'd love to know the dirt. I personally do not. They can keep it. I don't want that information. I think we have heard quite enough. But hey, if they ever release it at some point, somebody could, make an entire full-time job of trying to understand all of that nonsense. Rachel says, Lori's affair will help the prosecution prove that she did this. I agree with you. Thank you, Diamond Dave, for the support. It is a rough topic. It's never fun for me to dig into this, but I do it because it helps me. And it helps other people too. I think understanding understanding of Lori's thought process, her psyche, her mentality helps all of us to understand the people in our lives who are like this. And I think almost everyone like us knows everyone knows someone like Lori. And so I think that this information, I hope anyway, is helpful for other people who are dealing with people with these personality types and learning how to hold good boundaries and how to hold them accountable. Because I think that's the whole problem of why we got to where we did, is that nobody held Lori accountable and nobody was willing to tell her to her face that she was crazy and delusional except Adam. And then when he did, she didn't want to talk to him ever again. And those are the consequences that we face when we call people out and hold them accountable. Yes, they're probably going to be really unhappy about it, and they're probably not going to want to talk to us again. But which would you rather have? Would you rather just say, like Janice did, oh, Lori's not hurting anybody with her beliefs, just leave her alone, and continue to maintain a relationship with Lori? Or would you rather have what Adam did and say, you're crazy, that's not true, and have her cut you off and not talk to you again? I personally don't want unhealthy people in my life. So if I tell someone that they're unhealthy or that they're harming me and they decide not to talk to me again, that's one less person that I have to spend my emotional energy on who doesn't deserve it. So yeah, there are consequences for holding people accountable. And sometimes we don't want to do that because we don't want to be abandoned. That can be a really hard thing to confront and dig into, especially if we've been abandoned or if we've been rejected in the past by people that we love and care about. It is the reason why the very first episode on the Midlife Revolution is called Alone. Learning how to be alone and being comfortable with being alone gives us the power to enable boundaries for ourselves. It gives us the power to put people out of our lives when they're not treating us with kindness and respect. If we can master the art of being alone and sitting with our uncomfortable feelings and healing from them, we are going to be so much healthier. And we're going to have only the people in our life who are the best people for us, the people who feed our energy, the people who fill our souls. And then we won't have people around us who are unhealthy, because unhealthy people can't stand to be around people who are healthy and who have good boundaries. So, yep, it's risky. It's risky to set boundaries and to hold people accountable, but it is so freaking worth it, because you end up in a place in life where you're so good with yourself and the people around you. Highly recommend it. I did an episode on Sunday evening about how to have healthy boundaries with problematic family members. And I think it's timely as we're going into Thanksgiving week here in the United States and the holidays around the world. We should not feel obligated to engage with family members who are not healthy. And we should not feel obligated to put ourselves in a position to be treated with unkindness or disrespect. So I hope that everybody takes some time to reflect on what they want to get out of the holidays, and then to set the boundaries that are necessary, and to say, this is what I'm going to do because this is the healthiest thing for me, and not feel obligated to engage with people who are not healthy. So I agree with you, MB. I don't think it'll be earlier because of the holidays. Oh, good. Annie Cushing has a timeline that's on her link tree. And also, I hate to say it, just because of the, not super reputable resource of Wikipedia all the time, but I do donate to Wikipedia because I want it to become more reputable. But there is an entire Lori Vallow case timeline on the Wikipedia page as well. And as far as I can tell, it's accurate. At least it was the last time I looked at it, which was probably during Chad's trial. So, Istanbul TR says, I think the castings were just a trick to see how much their enablers will support their murderous plans. This is a really interesting thought. And I think the castings were a way to keep those closest to them invested in what they were doing, because I have this little theory. If you want to be in charge of a group, if you want to start your own religion or your own cult, if you give everybody a little bit of power and a little bit of responsibility and make them feel special and important, it sort of bonds them to you, and it creates a lot of loyalty. And so they wanted their followers to be very loyal. So they told all of their followers that they had some really special gift or talent, then gave them an opportunity to use that gift or talent in service of the group. And that bonded them together, and it created that loyalty. So they knew that their secrets were going to be kept. So I think this was definitely part of it as well. MB says, getting a jury for a long trial, it would be cruel, to have them over the holidays and whatever. I feel for whoever the future jurors are going to be. I did an interview with one of the jurors on Lori Vallow's first trial, Tom Evans, who wrote a book about his experiences, which I found very, very fascinating from the juror's perspective. We talked about the fact that his life will never be the same. And I did ask him, though, in what ways it was still the same. And I loved his answer. So you'll have to go look for that episode. I've met so many wonderful people through this process, and I have been so grateful to see the number of people who care about justice enough to show up for this trial and to follow the trial and to engage with this process. And so whoever the future jurors are on this trial, my heart is already with you. And I'm already thinking about those people. I actually have jury duty on the day of Lori's hearing, December 5th. And I've had to postpone my service twice, so I hope I don't have to postpone it again. One was for my injury. So I think I will be healthy by then. I go to the doctor on Thursday. So anyway, jury service is so incredibly important. I see it very differently than I did before. I used to always think about trying to get out of jury service. Now I wouldn't dream of it, although I don't typically tend to get picked for juries because I am a very opinionated female. And sometimes that doesn't track with what the defense attorneys want. So anyway, I will let you guys know what happens with that. Looking for more questions here, guys. Thank you again for being here. Thanks for liking the episode and subscribing. I do really, really appreciate you. Data. She's no longer the pretty girl. Not sad for her. Kelly J says, I've heard the tablets are preloaded with apps, so no Wi-Fi access, but not sure. And I do know that I have actually spoken to at least 2 people who are texting with Lori, or at least who were texting with her on a regular basis. Both of them corroborate that if you talk with Lori about religion, she will talk with you all day long. And if you ask her about the case, she will stop talking to you. So, sorry, guys, just looking for more questions and comments here. Anonymous Canadian girl, I've been struggling, but finally coming back to myself and thrilled to be among all the lovely people in this chat. It's really good to see you again. I've missed seeing your screen name and hearing your comments or reading your comments. Diamond Dave says, to be fair, can one love a criminal of her caliber? Well, I think I stated that when Lori gave her crazy allocution statement and I realized how far down the religious rabbit hole she still was stuck, I lost all compassion and empathy for her. So no, I don't love Lori in the way that I love and care for my other relatives. That being said, we are blood and we grew up together, and I mourn the loss of the Lori that I knew, the one that was the funny and engaging, sparkly cheerleader who loved to sing songs and make up dances. I mourn that Lori. And the problem that I keep coming up against is that the version of her that's here today is part of that was in there the whole time. And that's the whole reason I started speaking up, is because I saw her unhealthy tendencies, her manipulation and her controlling behaviors long before any of this happened. But I do think that she has morphed into a very sad and strange, very dark version of herself. And so the definition of love in my book is that I'm concerned and I care about the people in my life and that I want their happiness and their well-being. What I want for Lori, I think, is something that will never happen. I want her to feel the weight of what she's done and to have remorse for it, and I want to be intentional about the words that I use. I do want her to suffer the pain and agony and anguish of knowing what she's done, because I think that is the only pathway to true redemption. And I think I was saying to somebody last night, it might have been you, Diamond Dave, that if I think about life as a game, and that if we play it well, then we get to play another game. And that if we don't play it well and we harm others and we cheat and we lie and we steal and we kill, that we're done. We don't get to play games anymore. I used to think, when I was going through my faith transition, about, the afterlife, and do I believe in that anymore? And do I believe in hell anymore? Because I used to take great comfort in the saying that justice belongs to God. And I don't know what I believe anymore, but one of the contemplations that I had during that time was, what if hell just means that you have to suffer the same pain and anguish that you caused other people during this life? That if you made an honest attempt to repair your relationship with somebody or repair the damage that you did, then that's off your slate, right? But if you made no effort to make amends for the wrongs that you did in this life, that you just have to suffer the same way that you made other people suffer. I think that would be justice. That brings me comfort. That makes me feel good. I used to think that I wanted the death penalty for Lori, but after Chad was convicted and after he received the death penalty, I really had very serious existential crisis over that. because it made me feel like when we give up on a human being, we give up on ourselves. When we give up on the possibility that a human being can change, we give up on the possibility that we can change. And I still have a lot of complicated feelings about all of that. I did an episode on some of those feelings, and then I took it down because I was so emotional that I wasn't really ready to share my thoughts in a cohesive way. So then I recorded another episode that I never published. So at some point, I may get around to combining those two episodes somehow and putting my thoughts out there, because they're complicated, and I have a very new perspective on it now, being directly involved in a case like this. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts. I would love to know what you guys think about that. So thanks, Diamond Dave, for being here and supporting the channel. Lori's brain is not wired the same way that ours is, and I think that's very true. We have to take into consideration that she came wired a little bit different, and I think other circumstances in her life caused her to take those differences to some extremes. And I don't know for sure exactly what happened to her, but I have my own thoughts and speculations and ideas on that. And all I will say is that Lori's story and mine are very similar in a lot of ways. And I see a lot in her unhealthy behaviors. I recognize that I could have gotten to the place where I became manipulative and controlling, because all narcissism is, and I'm not saying that she is a narcissist, but she has narcissistic traits and tendencies. All narcissism is a defense mechanism against being hurt. People develop manipulative, narcissistic, controlling tendencies in an effort to try and control what happens to them and to control how they are perceived and how they are treated. And so I think that's what happened with Lori. And, narcissistic people are actually the most fragile people. They have those tendencies because they want to appear strong to others and to themselves. But those tendencies were developed because they don't want to get hurt again. But they're some of the most fragile people. Istanbul TR, I agree with you. Lori cares about Lori. That's all. So she doesn't get hurt or damaged. Her reputation doesn't get damaged. I appreciate that. Thank you. If Lori Vallow is allowed to represent herself, then could she ask her relatives questions? Absolutely. She's representing herself. She's going to be the one in charge of questioning people and cross-examining people. I can only imagine how that's going to go. I think it's going to be awful. The other reason that I don't want her to represent herself is because I want the objections coming from the defense to be fair and efficient. I was very annoyed by some of John Pryor's objections. I think he was grasping at straws, and I think he objected to a lot of things that he didn't need to. Lori's defense team in her first trial was much more reserved with their objections, and it helped the trial go along faster. So I can only imagine what's going to happen if it's Lori and she gets to object, but she doesn't know exactly when she can object, and that's going to create a whole host of problems. I also want the defense attorneys to be able to competently cross-examine the prosecution witnesses so that, again, there's less chance of a mistrial, there's less chance of an appeal, all of those things. So all of these questions coming up for me about Lori representing herself, it's just a terrible idea, and it's the last thing in the world that I want, honestly. Thank you. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for being here. As an autistic, I do nothing but self-reflect. I can't even imagine a world where I didn't obsess over how I'm impacting the people around me. And I think most of us can identify with this because we do care how people perceive us, and we do care about the impact of our actions on other people. So I really appreciate your comments, guys. I've learned loads about what not to do when committing a crime from this case. Yeah, that's an understatement for sure. These guys were not competent crime committers, right? But I'm so grateful that they weren't, because it helped them to get caught, and it helped there to be a mountain of evidence against them and to be convicted. Sorry, after 2 hours, guys, my brain is going a little bit. I'm going to try to speed through these comments, so I appreciate you guys for being patient with me. For Lori to fall apart, there'd have to be something underneath the surface and actions that we see. I don't think there's anything there. I agree with you. When we look under that, the lights are on, but nobody's home. Yes, devouring mother. I would love to do this with Dr. John. I will have to contact him and see if he would be down for that. I know how busy he is, though, so I know he can barely fit in enough time to do all the lives that Lauren wants him to do. So I think I'll ask Lauren, because that's probably a better way to do that. Diamond Dave, I understand, has a fabulous channel. I can't wait to get over there. Thank you, Grammy B. That's so kind of you. Yay, McSpunky's here. Good to see you. Always the life of the party. Small gene pool in Mormonism. This is very true. I thought you were related. No, I'm not related to Heather Daybell. Although with all of the polygamy that went on, and the small gene pool in Mormonism, it's completely possible. I have hundreds of cousins that are distant cousins because they descended from different wives of whatever. My fourth great-grandfather was a polygamist and had 3 wives. I'm descended from his first wife. And then my maternal grandfather is also descended from polygamists. And so I have lots of cousins that I don't even know about. So it's possible somewhere in there that we're related. And I always make the joke that, I got to be really careful who I date. So I'm glad to see that too. I love that Dr. John's there for Colby and Lauren too. They speak very fondly of their relationship with him. Anna Franco says, one of the detectives asked Alex on video, when you went into the bedroom to allegedly retrieve your gun, why didn't you just lock the door or leave the house if you felt threatened? Alex was dumbstruck, so he had no good answers. I think, my answer in that case probably would have been, I was concerned about the safety of my sister and my niece, but Alex didn't know what to say because he wasn't concerned for their safety because it was pre-planned, I believe, allegedly. So, okay, I apologize, you guys. I can't get to, thank you so much for liking, everybody. I really appreciate that. I can't get to every single comment because I just scrolled through and there's quite a lot of them, but I'm going to prioritize questions. So I apologize if you made a comment and I didn't get to it, but I really do appreciate you. I appreciate you being here. And if there's something that I didn't get to that you feel is important to point out to me, please wait till the video's over and then comment make the comment below the video. These live comments will eventually go away. And so if you comment below the video after the live is over, I do see all of those comments and I try to do my best to respond to all of them if I possibly can. So I'm going to just prioritize questions now. Yes, this is true. LDS religion tells people they have gifts, and it's all about the impending apocalypse. It's in the name of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And so that also contributed, I believe, to Lori's beliefs going off the deep end, is that they kind of started in an unhealthy place to begin with. And I know a lot of people disagree with that because they're like, well, Chad's theology was not more mainstream Mormonism, but it had its roots there. And I think if you objectively look at the facts of what Mormons teach and believe, that the roots, Chad's theology is rooted in mainstream Mormonism. So, Russ, is it Raquel Acevedo? I'm sorry if I'm saying your name. It reminds me of Raquel. So who do you think will be Lori's witnesses? Summer, Janice, Melanie. Well, there we get into a bit of a sticky wicket because anybody who gets on the witness stand is subject to cross-examination. And so anybody who appears for the defense is going to be cross-examined by the prosecution. And it's not always the wisest idea to put someone on the stand if they're not going to hold up under cross-examination with the prosecution. I think there's some credibility issues. And I don't know. But what I hope is I hope that the prosecution calls all 3 of those people, because I think all 3 of them have information that is necessary to the case. And I think that it may not be the most flattering outcome, but I want to know the truth. And so I hope that all 3 of those people, as well as others, are called as witnesses so we get to find out the truth. Yes, religious trauma. And I agree with this, Diamond Dave, too. Being alone is not always good. Balance is key because we do need each other. We do need connection. But if we can get more comfortable with being alone more often, I think we can be healthier. But I agree with you about balance. I'm always going to agree with that because I'm a Libra. Sorry, guys. I can't even read all the comments. I really appreciate you contributing. Thank you, guys. Anna Franco, Wikipedia records, Chad predicted the world would come to an end on July 22nd of 2020. Thank you for adding that. Healthy stalkers. That's funny. Yes, she is a Daybell. She was married to Chad. However, she never legally changed her name to Daybell, and that's why in these legal proceedings, they will continue to refer to her as Vallow. Looking for questions. Thank you guys again. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you so much. I wonder this too, if Melanie Gibb will be in the trial at all. I can't quite remember, and I'd have to check my notes, but I believe she was there for the pool party. I don't know if there was a pool party or just a gathering. I don't know if Melanie was around Lori that day or not. But I do think she probably has quite a bit to contribute to this, because I know she was in contact with Lori just prior to this happening. She was one of that inner circle who was doing all the castings. So I'm pretty sure that Melanie Gibb will appear yet again in another trial. But I hope that this time she's a little more transparent, because I've said before, I really think that she knows some things that she's not saying. So Melanie Boudreaux-Pulowski was in the Air Force, and she did attend basic training here in San Antonio for that. Lindsay Hendricks says jury duty in Bexar County is pretty fun. I hope you get a case in Judge Boyd's court. I'm still registered in Bexar County because I hope I'll get the chance to. All right, well, we'll see. I will let you guys know for sure. I'll keep you posted. For some people, Anna Franco, it is. And I lived there for a while, so I'm solidarity with you. And I agree with this idea too. Thank you. We can make a version of heaven. I'm just putting them out there. I don't have the brain space right now to comment on it, so I really appreciate you guys. Thanks. Interesting. Maybe combine those videos and make to at least members. I think Irish Jen, you're talking about the 2 death penalty videos, and that's a possibility. I think if I remember correctly, my initial death penalty video is a members only video. And the reason I set it to members only is because I believe that if you're willing to financially support the channel, that maybe you are someone who is a little bit of a safer person for me to be vulnerable with. And so I tend to save my more vulnerable videos and more personal comments for the members only thing. Maybe that's naive of me, and I am new to YouTube, so I don't know, educate me if I'm wrong about that. But anyway, that's how I feel about it right now. Definitely things could change. And based on my experiences too, I've tried to do a lot of things to protect myself in some ways, to retain some of my privacy and anonymity in some ways. And so far they're working okay, but I could get to a point where, I need to be more guarded and more private. But for the time being, guys, I think those of you who've been around long enough, that I'm pretty much an open book. I really don't have secrets. I do have things I like to keep private, and I do I do like to keep the privacy of my children and my partner and his children and things like that. So I try to be careful about the way that I talk about things. But I don't really have secrets. And what I find interesting is that there is a contingent of people who say really, really negative things about me. It doesn't bother me at all because I know that they're not true. But what I find interesting is that the little circle of people who perpetuate these negative ideas about me have not come to me personally to address them with me personally. So all I'm saying is, if you believe something negative about me, maybe consider having a conversation with me to find out if it's true or not. I'm always willing to have those conversations. So, the end. That's all I have to say about that. Amy Friedman asks, do you have an opinion as to why no quote unquote leader noticed that Lori was obsessively attending the temple, and why have no quote unquote leaders been called into court over or an FBI interview or law enforcement agency? Yes, I do have an opinion. I will share it with you right now. Thank you for asking. First of all, it's pretty difficult for regular church leaders to keep track of temple attendance because the temple is an entity that is separate from the congregation leadership, if that makes sense. So in Mormonism, there is a leader of a congregation called a bishop, and he would be pretty well aware of what his members are doing some of the time, but not all of the time. Not every bishop is involved enough to know. Not every bishop has the time because they do that calling in addition to having a full-time career and family and things like that in most cases, and they are not compensated financially for their donation of time to the church. And it is a full-time job being a bishop. You have to interview all the people. You have to find jobs. You have to fill all of the jobs in the congregation. You have to coordinate the meetings and all of that. It's a lot of work. So not every bishop can be very aware. However, bishops do meet with their congregants at least once a year during tithing settlement, where people get to declare whether or not they have paid their full 10% for the year. And the bishop does get to decide. He is the first round of temple recommend interviews. So when you want to go to the temple, you have to have a temple recommend. It is literally a Mormon card. It has a barcode on it that you have to scan when you go to the front desk of the temple. The first step in that interview process is to meet with your bishop. The bishop asks you all the worthiness questions to find out if you're living all of the Mormon commandments the right way. And then he signs off on your recommend. And then you go to the next level up, which is the stake president or presidency interviews you. Now, a ward is a congregation and a stake is a collection of wards or a collection of congregations. I was very distressed to find out this had nothing to do with beef because I love steak. So when they said we were going to stake conference, I was super excited and then really disappointed. Anyway, so the bishop would have interviewed Lori for her temple recommend, but those recommends are good for 2 years. And so a lot can change in 2 years, as we have seen. We think that this evolution of Lori's took place over the course of probably just 3 or 4 years total. So the bishop is not aware. He's aware of who is applying for a temple recommend, but he's not necessarily aware of who's attending the temple, because there's a whole separate governing body over the temple called the temple presidency, which would consist of 3 men, of course, and then the temple workers themselves, the people who are at the temple scanning the recommends and conducting the ceremonies and things like that. So I just noticed this. Sorry. Thank you so much, Nana of 7, for I think it's a super chat. I don't know if it's a super chat or super sticker. I'm not super educated about that, but I will get to this right after I finish answering this question. Okay. So the temple presidency wouldn't be aware either necessarily if someone was coming in every single day, and the temple workers just have a shift in the temple every once in a while. A lot of times temple workers will only have a shift once a week. And so the people manning the desk would not even have necessarily known that Lori was going every single day. Not only that, but there are several temples within a stone's throw of where Lori lived. So she didn't necessarily have to be going to the same temple every day. So it's pretty difficult to keep track of temple attendance in that regard. And now I lost your comment. My goodness, I'm so sorry. but there was a second part to it, and I do want to find it because it was super important. In addition, while I'm looking, here it is, found it. Thank you. Why no leaders had been called into court or an FBI interview or law enforcement agency. Well, prior to the start of Lori's trial, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, First Presidency, meaning the three dudes who were in charge, issued a statement reminding church leaders that they were not to engage in any kind of investigation or court proceeding without first checking with the church's law firm, which is the Curtin McConkie firm. I believe that the church is probably the only client of Curtin McConkie. And they are a very litigious religion. If you did not know, they are constantly suing people and being sued by people. So Curtin McConkie is a pretty busy firm. But the church leadership reminded leaders that they need to check with the church's law firm before they engage in any kind of investigation or court proceeding. Now, that being said, if a judge wanted to subpoena someone, or if a prosecutor wanted to subpoena someone to appear as a witness, or even if the defense wanted to subpoena someone to appear as a witness, they absolutely could do that. And there's absolutely nothing that the church can do about that. I mean, they could, and they probably would. They would probably send someone to try and quash the subpoena to get the person off of having to appear in court, because they don't want anything to do with any of this. They don't want to be associated with Lori or her case or her trial in any way, or Chad. They don't want anything to do with this. That's why they haven't touched it with the 10-foot pole. They haven't commented on it at all, except to issue that one statement. They do not want to be lumped in with any of their members who are behaving badly. And the only thing they'll do is issue a general statement about things, like when the Secret Lives of Mormon Wives came out, they issued a statement about how unfortunate it is that they're portrayed this way in the media. I did do an episode where I talk about the statement that the church issued and my thoughts on it and how all of those things work. And so it's possible that a leader could have been called in and that the church attorneys quashed that subpoena. I think we would have heard about it from somewhere or someone, unless the records got sealed somehow. And the church does have a lot of power and influence in the state of Idaho and in the state of Utah and in the state of Arizona. So it's entirely possible that someone could have been called to testify and that the church intervened on behalf of them. So that, all of that being said, there is ecclesiastical privilege that they have, a protection where if somebody confesses something to an ecclesiastical leader, then there are protections around how much of that can be revealed. That being said too, though, I don't think Lori was talking to her leaders. Chad was her leader. She saw Chad as her priesthood leader. So I don't think that she said anything to her bishop or her stake president, other than that one recording that we have of her saying, I told my stake president that he either needed to give me a temple recommend or that I was going to kill my ex-husband. And the priesthood leader said, here's your temple recommend. I don't know if he addressed that comment with her. I hope that he did. But again, we have this thing in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints called Bishop Roulette, where bishops have a lot of leeway about how they handle certain things, especially discipline of members. A lot of times bishops are reluctant to discipline members without being told to do that by their stake president. And it is just a wild roulette reel of, like, sometimes you get a bishop who does the right thing and sometimes you don't. So because bishops are lay people, considering they're considered lay people, they're not paid clergy, they get very little training and very little support for the job that they have to do. And I don't want to bash on bishops because of that reason, but I've had some really great bishops and I've had some really terrible bishops. And I think that's true throughout the church. So I hope that answers your question. And I hope, I mean, if there is a clergy member who has information about the case that could help lead to a conviction, I sure as heck hope that they do get subpoenaed and that they are allowed to testify, and that the church is not allowed to interfere with their testimony. Excuse me for just a second. Lindsay, I must have missed your question regarding this. but Colby says he no longer believes, and I think you're maybe referring to that people can be possessed by evil spirits. But I think Colby is evangelical and he believes the Bible, and that's a concept that's in the Bible. So it's a really difficult thing to navigate. Like, do you believe that people in the Bible were possessed in evil spirits? Yes, but can they be possessed now? I think that's what Colby was saying, that he doesn't believe that currently is something that can happen. So I don't want to speak for Colby's beliefs, but I recommend, if you have questions about that you watch I think he did 2 episodes on Lori's phone call on his channel. Actually 3 if you count the one with Dr. John. So I would definitely recommend watching those. And again, guys, thank you so much for being here with me, trying to get to all of the questions. You know what? I used to love to play first-person shooter video games, and I was actually super good at James Bond. But then when they stopped making the James Bond games, I stopped playing them, because to me, it was like the story that was important. And then I just didn't have time for it. And I don't think I have time for it now either, but it might be fun to try it. I don't know. Grammy B, thank you for saying this. Oh, guys, goodness, my daughter just got home. Give me 1 second. I'm so sorry. I will be right back. I'm going to open the door for her and come right back. Guys, sorry about that. I'm so sorry. Did not expect this live to go for 2.5 hours, but here we are. And my daughter's home from school now, which is lovely and wonderful. And I think we're wrapping up. I think we're almost done here. I think I'm getting to the end of the questions, unless you guys put in a bunch more since the last time I scrolled all the way down. Again, thanks for being here. I hope that you've already liked the episode, and I would love to have you as a subscriber if you would like more content on healing and loving yourself better and positive change. It's the best free way to support the channel. I really appreciate my mods, Ashley and Jen. Thanks for being here. You guys have a hard job, because I just go spontaneously live sometimes, and I totally forget to tell people that need to know, like my mods, and I'm so sorry for that. Diane Renee, I'm here with you too. Jane Long, it's so obvious that Lori and Alex really hadn't planned well. Lori believed in her own delusions, and Alex clung to her to justify his own actions. I think that's pretty accurate. Thanks for being kind and respectful to each other in the chat, guys. I also really appreciate that. Yes, the world definitely did change in 2020. And I wonder if Lori and Chad thought that the pandemic was going to usher in the end times, and that they took it as a sign that they were correct. I wonder about that. I like the buy me a coffee option on YouTube. I'm going to have to look into that. Guys, I got thrown into this podcasting, YouTubing world knowing absolutely nothing. And I have learned the very hard and expensive way how not to do things. And so there is a lot of stuff I don't know. And so I'm happy to have all these hints. And Diamond Dave probably knows the best. Maybe you could educate me on how to make that work. And I actually really love coffee now. I didn't used to. And I found out it was because I love the smell of coffee. I've never liked the taste of it. And my partner Samuel always drinks coffee black, and I enjoy a latte with an extra shot. So there we are. Okay, Nana of 7, I'm so sorry. I said I was going to get right to this right after that other question, and my ADHD, sorry about that. I'm so sorry. Did you notice she wanted to represent herself after the conversation with Colby, and he sort of shunning? It's the Lori show and how horrifying she could cross-examine her family. Yeah, I don't know exactly, and maybe Colby said, and if anybody knows, please tell me. I don't know the timing of that phone call between Lori and Colby, and between that and the timing of when Lori decided that she was going to represent herself. Because I will tell you, according to my notes, okay. According to my notes, Lori was, she reported that she wanted to represent herself, I believe, at the hearing on October 24th. That's the first that I know of it. It could have been before then because I wasn't super paying attention to the timeline at that point. And I don't know exactly when the call between Lori and Colby took place. And at this point, I've done so many episodes since then that I don't even remember when I did the episode on Colby's call. But I know it was quite a while after, because when it first aired, I watched it on Colby's channel live, and that was on my birthday. I do remember now, October 6th. And I took a long time before I talked about it because I really wanted to be thoughtful about the way that I spoke about Colby and his experience, because I don't ever want to speak for anyone else. I want to speak about my own experiences. So it is entirely possible that the phone call aired and then Lori decided to go pro se. I think that's possible now looking at those dates. So thank you for asking that question. I do think that Colby shunning Lori did hurt her deeply. I think she really was counting on not having Colby support her, but having access to Colby as supply of manipulation and control. So that's my opinion on that. I think it did hurt her deeply. And maybe she does now feel like she doesn't have anything to lose, and going pro se is a way to express that. And it is horrifying that she could cross-examine her family. Man, I am so grateful. In some ways, I have to be careful with myself and kind to myself. I'm so grateful that I have a little bit of distance from this case. At the same time, I am so sad that I was not close enough to be in a position to do anything positive for the children that could have spared them suffering. I know I do not blame myself. I really don't, but I grieve the fact that me distancing myself from Lori and from that part of the family back in the early 2000s meant that I don't have proximity to them in a positive way either. It was the right thing for me. It was the healthiest thing for me. It was the right thing for my kids, absolutely 100%. And I did the right thing. I did. But it also, doing the right thing also has consequences sometimes. And it is what it is. I can't control it. I can't change it, but I do grieve it. So anyway, Nana of 7, thanks for supporting me, and thanks for your question. And anyway, I appreciate it. Okay, guys. Questions? Are there more questions? I'm scrolling. And I'm getting a phone call, so I'm going to have to wrap this up. It's been a while. I really appreciate you guys sticking with me for this long time. Almost all of my, thank you, Daylisa, for asking. Almost all of my social media are at @3rd_verse. And I think my Venmo is either at @3rd_verse or at @3rd-verse. But it's very clear that it's the Midlife Revolution. You're going to see that logo right there on it. So thank you for asking, and I appreciate the support. I do a lot more on TikTok about ex-Mormon stuff. I do a lot more on Instagram about healing stuff. If you're looking for other content, it's there. So thanks for this, Eleanor. You're a different person now from even when I first saw you speak. Don't be hard on yourself over the kids. Thanks. I appreciate that. And I agree. I do not like to go back and look at any of those interviews that I first did. I give myself a lot of grace for where I was at that time, but I agree. I've changed a lot since then. And the decision to start a podcast in April of this year is one of the best things that I ever could have decided to do. And I've had so much fun meeting people and interviewing people and learning so much about people and about how to heal and about how to do YouTube and do podcasting and all that stuff. I've loved it. It's been wonderful. And I agree. I'm very different from back then. And I like it. I actually have watched some of Make Money Matt's videos and appreciated it. And I'm still doing some research and figuring out how to make this whole thing work, but I always appreciate help and suggestions from all of you guys. I knew a lot of what was going on in Lori's home. I mean, not necessarily her home with Charles, but in her growing up home, absolutely did, because it was very similar to some of the things that were going on with my family of origin as well. And you're right. I did not know exactly what was going on in Lori and Charles's home, or even Lori and Joe's home. And that's one of the reasons I distanced myself, is because when she started making accusations of Joe, I didn't know the truth. All I knew was the official family story. And when Lori starts saying, don't talk to X person, it usually means that they know something bad about Lori. And so I just wanted to be away from all of that. It was not healthy for me. I needed space to heal. And it took me a long time to get there. And I don't think that I would have been able to have a positive influence on anything that was going on in Lori's home or life until I did my healing. And it's only just barely done. And it's only just, I mean, I only just barely, got divorced in 2017. So in 2018, 2019, I was still working pretty hard on healing from everything that was happening. So, yeah, you're right. I just do need to be easier on myself about that. I was not then who I am now. And the perspective that I have now, I think would have been helpful at that time. But I didn't have this perspective even in 2017, 2018. I was just barely finishing my divorce in June of 2018. And I was not in a position to reach out to help other family members. I was still spinning. I was still skidding down the road, So I was still dealing with putting my own mask on at that point. All right, you guys, thank you so much again for being here. Again, if you are interested in coaching, go to my website, third-first.com, sign up for a free consult, a free call. Stay tuned for more info. I'm going to stay on this case. We're going to keep talking about healing. We're going to keep talking about, we're going to see this through to the end. That's what we're going to do, all the way to the end. And I hope you'll be here with me, because I love this little community of people that I have built. And I love these beautiful humans who are surrounding each other in support and kindness and care. Please be good to each other, but most of all, be good to yourself. I will see you again soon, probably tonight.